Whether or not Jacob Rees-Mogg is too stupid to understand how ridiculous he looks when he seeks to defend this man, or whether his ridiculousness is now so baked in that it's as much a part of him as the ludicrous confected accent, I do not know. I'll never know. And frankly, I think we might finally be approaching a period of British political history where we don't actually have to care anymore. The contributions of these divots are finally returning to the redundancy from which they should never have been elevated. Andrea Jenkyns, Donald Trump's biggest British fan last time I checked, although whether she stepped back from that position I did neither know nor care, but she was waving her pathetic little polyester flag for Boris Johnson yesterday despite the absolutely incontrovertible evidence. Incontrovertible evidence. Rees-Mogg didn't even vote yesterday after that. Well, let's just call it an intervention, shall we? 9 minutes after 10 is the time. Rishi Sunak didn't turn up. I suggested to you he would be in Ukraine. It was tongue-in-cheek, but only 52% tongue-in-cheek. 48% tongue-in-cheek, 52% wherever your tongue sits the rest of the time when it's not in your cheek. In the case of much of the journalists, many of the journalists who've been... No, I won't go there. No, you're quite right. I think I'll leave that picture to paint itself in your minds. But the Prime Minister didn't even turn up. His justification for it just didn't make any sense at all. But it occurred to me, watching some of the debate and listening to some of the defences yesterday, it occurred to me that none of it has made sense for a long time now. They just say words. They don't mean anything. Can we get the Sunak stuff from yesterday, the bit where he sought to explain, or from today, just Sunak talking about why he wouldn't be there. Some of the other people that stood up in the House of Commons yesterday, Nicholas Fletcher, I hadn't come across before. You're already nominating the worst people. I wasn't going to do this as a topic, but seeing as you've already started, who am I to stand in your way? Nadine Dorries, Andrea Jenkyns. Is it Nia Lockie? Is that how you pronounce it? Nicholas Fletcher, Jacob Rees-Mogg. Some of them. I mean, who are the worst contributors to this national pageant? I do not know, but I do know this: an astonishing number of Tory MPs failed to turn up. They failed to turn up. A decent number did, and I know it's not a lot to ask of a parliamentarian, but given the choice, some took the right one. Sangeeta conducted an astonishing interview with Tobias Ellwood at the weekend. I don't know if you heard it. It was one of the most powerful bits of political radio I've ever had the privilege of experiencing. And it was essentially a very senior Conservative, albeit one who's never been particularly sympathetic or bamboozled, shall we say, by Boris Johnson, Tobias Ellwood, planning to abstain at the outset when he appeared on the programme, and then returning to be told by Sangeeta that callers to LBC had been making their feelings pretty clear. Callers had been offering up their views, particularly on the issue of abstaining. And as a consequence of that exchange, Tobias Ellwood moved from intending to abstain to intending to vote in support of the Privileges Committee report. Now, listen, I know all politicians are awful and all of that rhetoric. I know how intoxicating it can be. It's not true. There are decent people in Parliament, and there are decent people in all parties. You just have to dig a little deeper in some of them than you do in others. And I know that Ellwood will be conscious of his constituency and his constituents, but still, that was really. I read this book once, and the first line of it was, "There's no point having a mind if you never change it." And I thought Tobias Ellwood, after his exchange with did I say read? I meant wrote. Tobias Ellwood, with his exchange with Sangeeta the other day, I thought that was a really beautiful and very rare example of it. And yet, so many of them still abstained. I'm conscious of a stuck record on the no, not that one. No, not that one either. No, nor that one. I'm conscious of a new stuck record on the programme at the moment, and it's my concern for people who've been abandoned by their political heroes. And while you might not realise you've been abandoned, I genuinely feel, especially if you were heavily invested and engaged in this, the idea that Boris Johnson was a winner and that he had your interests at heart. And if you were solely signed up because it upset people like Sadiq Khan, that's fine. I mean, we can speculate about what your motivations are, but I'm not talking to you now. I will continue to feed your masochistic streak every morning with facts and evidence and vindication, but I'm not talking to you right now. I'm talking to people like Rohit in Redbridge, who says, as a Conservative voter, I think every abstainer or non-attendee should be handed their P45 and shown the door. Let the by-election ensue. I don't generally agree with you, James. However, on this one, I do. That's who I'm concerned about most. There's no fun in being proved right about this stuff because it's our country. If you care about the country, then you do not derive any pleasure whatsoever from seeing predictions of damage come true. But people who thought that they would be on the sunlit uplands by now, people who thought that Boris Johnson was somehow trustworthy, people who thought that, I'll leave Brexit out of it because I do understand that that's possibly too big a obstacle to get over yet. But Leah Nicky was the one I was thinking about. Richard has reminded me. I didn't see Andrew Bridgen's contribution, but Russell has christened him the dork of the debate. I think that kind of goes without saying, doesn't it? Unless John Redwood stands up. But the people who didn't turn up, let's think about that for a minute. Huge proportion of them will have been people claiming not long ago to care about parliamentary sovereignty. In many ways, I think that abstaining or being absent yesterday, I think that's impinging parliamentary sovereignty. Certainly not endorsing the report impugns parliamentary sovereignty. They also claimed that they wanted to take back control, and yet when they were given an opportunity to do so, they elected to twiddle their thumbs. They have absolutely no case to stand on, no legs to stand on when it comes to defending Johnson. The people who tried to do it did that. Chiefly, I think, that Leah Nicky woman and that Jacob Rees-Mogg chap. I think they proved most conclusively that trying to defend him was a absolutely ludicrous project. And then the decision not to turn up at all. Should we do the why and the what this morning? So I don't know whether you know what your own MP did. Chances are, if it's a Tory, they bottled it. There's a chance that they actually voted against the bill, which would make them... I read it this morning, and there's only 7 of them. Desmond Swain came in as a late arrival, so we'll run through those names. But the ones that didn't turn up, the why and the what of it. Why didn't they turn up? 0345 6060 973. Seriously, I don't think that's a rhetorical question. I think there'll be different answers to it. If you're listening, lads, give us a ring. And ladies, if you are one of the people that bottled it yesterday, tell us why. 0345 6060 973. I heard one of them suggesting that they thought the 90-day suspension was too stringent. And I found myself thinking it was a theoretical suspension, mate. Your man's already run away. Brave Sir Boris. Ran away. He's already run away. Oh, I don't think the 90-day suspension is fair. You realise he's not going to have to take the... Yes, but I didn't want to vote for it because it wouldn't have been fair. OK, so you are impugning parliamentary sovereignty or impugning the findings of the committee. Rishi Sunak ran away. He was absent for the debate along with other senior cabinet ministers. He said he was busy meeting the Swedish Prime Minister before a dinner in the evening. That's just not true. By the way, I don't need parliamentary privilege to call that a lie. That's a blatant lie. If he wanted to vote in that debate, he could have done with it. I'll tell you what, make a list of people that you think might understand the importance of casting a vote in a parliament, and I suspect that a foreign prime minister would be fairly near the top of it. What's that you say, Mr. Sunak? You need to pop next door? You need to pop over the road and cast a vote? Well, absolutely, of course. No problem at all. I will stay here and play Jenga. The idea that he couldn't go and vote is a blatant lie. Utter cowardice, actually. That's the angriest I felt this morning. I'm pretty chill otherwise, but the Prime Minister, we discussed this yesterday, utter cowardice. And Nishi, I'm told it's pronounced. My apologies. Thank you, Dean. Didn't turn up. Astonishing, really. Absolutely astonishing. Why didn't they turn up? 0345 6060 973. Either your MP or your Prime Minister or the whole pathetic A lot of them. Why? Why didn't they turn up? What possible calculation would have made it preferable not to turn up? And are they more cowardly than the people who voted to defend Boris Johnson? I am not offering up a single scintilla of support for those clowns, except to say that they might, although they're hideous, be somehow less cowardly than their colleagues who couldn't even be bothered to appear or to vote one way or the other. So there's three categories here, isn't there? There's the people who were there but abstained. That's an action, if you like. That is an act of abstention. There's absenteeism, which is an inaction. I didn't even bother turning up. And then there is opposition, which is again an action. So the strongest, that's probably the right word to use. The strongest action is to vote against. The second strongest action, and indeed the second weakest action, is to abstain. And the weakest action, or the least strong action, is to absent yourself. What do you think of it? What do you think of them? 0345 6060 973. I really mean it, because we've got to start clawing back our democracy now. And the best way to do that is by informed conversation about political issues. We've got to get rid of the football scarves. We've got to get rid of the Brexit intoxication. We've got to start everyone has to start at some point doing what we've tried to do for the last few years and focusing upon facts. What on earth was going on in the minds of these people who wanted to take back control and who fetishised parliamentary sovereignty when given an opportunity to do both on a very personal level? They carked it. They bottled it. They ran for the hills. Why did they do that?